Hey there, survivors. Cougar here with a beginner's quick start guide for the amazing underwater survival game Subnautica Below Zero. This guide is intended for true beginners who never played the first game and might need a bit of help getting started. We're going to get you set up with some of the starting tools and equipment that you can get on day one. We're also going to talk a little bit about food and water and take a quick look around your PDA. We are starting out after the opening sequence, but before we head to our life pod, let's take a quick look around the HUD. In the lower left-hand corner, you have 5 gauges. The temperature gauge, which is at the top of the stack when we are not underwater. An oxygen gauge, which moves to the top of the stack when you are underwater. Wait for it. There it goes. A health gauge, a food gauge, and a water gauge. Note that you start with a half-empty stomach, so getting some food to shove in our faces will be a day one priority. At the top of the screen, you have your current depth. Later, we will craft a compass, which will show underneath the depth display. At the bottom of the screen, you have 5 quick bar slots. You can assign items to quick bar slots by dragging and dropping them from your inventory or hovering over them in your inventory and hitting a number key to assign it to that slot. Our top priorities today will be to craft a knife, an oxygen tank, and some swim fins. To do that, we will need in total 3 pieces of titanium, 3 pieces of silicone rubber, and 1 piece of fiber mesh. Silicone rubber and fiber mesh are both obtained from creep vines. I will show you how to get that stuff in just a minute. For now, let's head to our life pod. Right over here. The life pod is pretty basic. Inside we have a storage container. Left click on items in your inventory to move them into the storage container and vice versa. Left click to get them back out. You also have your fabricator. Now the fabricator is what you're going to use to craft and break down basically everything you can craft in the game right now, but we are actually going to be using that later, so let's wait until we're actually using it and I'll tell you more about it when we do. For now, let us head out. As I mentioned, our top priority is to find some creep vines. I see some off in the distance over there, but as we head toward those creep vines, we want to be on the lookout for limestone outcrops. Now you see the game is giving us one of the few tutorial messages you're going to get in this game. It's telling you to break this limestone outcrop. When I do, it gives me either copper ore or titanium. In this case, it gave us copper ore. Yep, we're going to need that later on, so we will bring that with us. We also want to be on the lookout for small prey fish that we can catch and eat, like this hoopfish right here.
Oxygen creature discovered.
Hoopfish are pretty good, but you don't want to eat the antenna. Those parts are not good for you. We also want to be looking out for bladderfish. The game giving you another tutorial message here to capture this bladderfish.
New creature discovered.
Bladderfish will provide you with a small bottle of drinkable water.
New blueprint synthesized.
Now we've reached the creep vines, and there are the creep vine seed clusters that we are looking for, but let me just get a little bit more oxygen before we actually start grabbing them. As I mentioned, crafting an oxygen tank will be one of our day one priorities to extend our oxygen supply. For now, we're coming down to the creep vine seed clusters. We're going to grab as many of those as we can fit in our inventory for now.
New blueprint synthesized.
1 creep vine seed cluster will give you 2 pieces of silicone rubber or 1 lubricant. You can also eat creep vine seed clusters by left clicking on them to get some water. That gives me plus 10 units of drinkable water. All right, we've got some creep vine seed clusters. We're going to grab, that is
oxygen.
A silver outcrop. We're going to wait, and I'll talk about silver when we get there. Let's just grab a little bit more oxygen before we head back to the pod. As I was saying, we needed 3 pieces of titanium. We have gotten none so far. There's 1 from breaking a limestone outcrop. There's 2 from breaking another limestone outcrop. There's another outcrop. That is copper ore. We now have 2 pieces of copper ore, which we will use to craft batteries, to craft later a scanner and a flashlight. But there's our 3rd piece of titanium from a limestone outcrop.
Oxygen.
Now we can head back to our life pod. All right, back in the pod, it's time to make use of the Fabricator for the first time. Fabricator starts with 4 main categories: resources, which expands out into basic materials and electronics; sustenance, which is where you cook your food and make your water, also make cured food; personal, which expands out into equipment and tools; and deployables. New stuff will be appearing in the Fabricator as you go through the game and discover data boxes and scan stuff for new blueprints. But for now, let's start on resources, basic materials, and turn a bunch of those creepvine seed clusters into silicone rubber. We're going to need a lot of silicone rubber at the start, so we're going to turn all of these seed clusters into silicone rubber. Reminder, each creepvine seed cluster provides you with 2 pieces of silicone rubber. All right, now we're going to go to personal tools and use 1 piece of silicone rubber and 1 piece of titanium to make a survival knife. Now we're going to go to personal equipment and use 2 pieces of silicone rubber to make swim fins. We were also going to talk about getting some food and water, so we can go to sustenance, cooked food, and cook up the cooked hoop fish that we picked up. We can go to sustenance water and turn the bladderfish we picked up into a small bottle of filtered water. Now, food does degrade over time, so let's go into our inventory and eat this right away by left-clicking on it, and drink some water by left-clicking on it. Great, now that we have a knife, let's go into our inventory, hover over our survival knife, hit 1 to bind it to our quick bar slot number 1. And we can check out our fancy new knife. How does that look? Ooh, shiny. Very nice. Great. Now that we have a knife, we can go back out to the creepvines. Creepvines over here. Always on the lookout for a snack if it swims right in front of us. Sure, why not? Now we deploy our knife and right-click to swing our knife on the creepvine, cutting creepvine samples.
New blueprint synthesized.
Creepvine samples different than the creepvine seed clusters we picked up earlier.
Oxygen.
We will now use these samples, creepvine samples, to make fiber mesh, which we will then use to make an oxygen tank. Hey there, bladderfish. Whoop, where'd you go? Shoot, I thought we had an easy drink of water there, and he slipped away from me. All right, back in the pod. Now we'll go to the Fabricator, resources, basic materials. Use the creepvine samples to make fiber mesh. I picked up a bunch of those, so let's make a bunch of fiber mesh because fiber mesh is also used to make first aid kits. All right, now that we've got that fiber mesh, we can go to personal equipment and use 2 pieces of titanium, 1 piece of fiber mesh to make our standard O2 tank.
Adding additional blueprints to your databank.
Yep, great,
The
thank you.
standard oxygen tank can be upgraded for deluxe and VIP breathing.
Yeah, deluxe and VIP upgrades, we'll do those later. For now, let's use some of that extra fiber mesh that we made to make a couple of first aid kits. And that will do it. We were also going to talk a little bit about our PDA. Just pull that up for you real quick. At the top, so we got 6 tabs running across the top. Your inventory is pretty self-explanatory. You got your paper doll where your equipment will self-equip itself usually. Then you've got your blueprints tab. You can pin blueprints so that they are always visible out in the field on the top right corner of your HUD so that you can remember what materials you're trying to gather to make any particular piece of equipment. Then you've got your beacon manager. Beacons can be turned on or off here. Right now we've only got 1 beacon, the drop pod beacon, but later you can make your own beacons and drop them around the world and turn them on or off. Here you can also use this to change the color of the beacon as it appears. Photo manager, we haven't taken any screenshots yet. Voice logs for replaying any voice communications that you missed. A data bank, which is where you can go to learn a lot about the protagonist and her sister, also about how to survive on this planet, also about some of the tech that you're picking up, equipment, vehicles, habitats, stuff like that.
Oxygen.
mobile vehicle bay, sea glide, all that interesting stuff. Let's just get some O2. But that will about do it. We have reached the end of day 1, and we have crafted a knife, some swim fins, and an oxygen tank. We also used some extra fiber mesh to make a couple of first aid kits and talked a little bit about the PDA. We also made some food and used a bladderfish to make a small bottle of fresh drinkable water. But that will do it for this beginner's quick start tutorial. Leave a like and subscribe if you thought it was helpful, and there will be a full guided gameplay series coming once the game releases. Until then, stay safe, survivors.